Welcome everyone to Daf Yomi 1 week at a time, Masechet Avoda Zara. This is our fourth class, and today we are going to be reviewing Daf 22 through 28. And today our class is dedicated for the Refuah Shlema of Noam Ephraim ben Ifat. And we wish Noam Ephraim a refuah shlema, and may our learning be in his zchut for his complete recovery. Okay, we are at Daf 22 at the top. We're finishing up the first chapter, and we were in the middle of talking about working with a partner who is an idolater. Again, I'm going to preface, as I have before, if I use the word non-Jew in this class or in the whole Masechet, it does not mean someone who is not Jewish. It means an idolater. I feel like that has more syllables than non-Jew. So if I end up saying, again, non-Jew, it means someone who worships idols, a pagan. Which, as we said, is problematic. So let's say you have two sharecroppers. One is Jewish and one is not Jewish. So the Gemara asks, can they split up the work so that the Jew works, let's say, on Sunday and the non-Jew works on Shabbat? So one opinion is, yes, that's okay. Another opinion is that it's not okay because if they're partners, so then the Jew is benefiting by the pagan working on Shabbat, and therefore it is problematic. But if they decide this, they decide to do this sharing at the beginning of the partnership, so then it's okay, right? They go into the partnership. These are the days that we're going to split our work. If not, they can't, after a while, then decide that this is going to be their partnership. Another opinion is that this machloket was actually in a case where they planted a new tree, right? And as we know, the concept of orla, you're not allowed to eat the fruit in the first 3 years. And then on the fourth year, it's a special year, and then you can eat the fruit. So again, can you have the idolater eating the first 3 years and then the Jew eats afterwards? Again, if that was the beginning of their relationship and that was their agreement or understanding, then that's fine. If not, then it is problematic. Okay, with that, we finish the first chapter. And now we are going to begin the second chapter of Masechet Avoda Zara. So the Mishnah tells us that you are not allowed to put your animal into the stable or the pen of a non-Jew, either with his animals or without his animals, because the Gemara says we suspect the idolater of bestiality. And as we mentioned in the beginning of this Masechet, these prohibitions are also for non-Jews, meaning, as we know, there are the 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach, the 7 Noachide laws. One of them is bestiality, and therefore you cannot keep your animals with this idolater. Neither male nor female animals. A Jewish woman should not be alone with a non-Jew. We are concerned that he will rape her. A man cannot be alone with an idolater because we're afraid he's going to kill him. Now, again, I think it's just, I guess I'll keep repeating this. This is not against, your friendly neighborhood non-Jew. We're dealing with a time where, right, Chazal, in the time of the Mishnah and the Gemara, it was dangerous to interact with with these idolaters. They are promiscuous. They are not, at least from the Gemara, right, seem that murder is not a big deal for them. Rape is not a big deal for them. So again, we have to put things into context. But I do want to mention the concept of yichud, and we are going to mention this in a little bit in today's class. There is a prohibition, take aside non-Jew, for a Jewish man and a Jewish woman to be alone in a room if they do, right, if they're not married. The issue is we are concerned for inappropriate behavior. Now, we can look at this in two ways. One is we want to make sure that they, that maybe it's like a boyfriend and a girlfriend, and we want to prevent them from, doing things that they should not be doing. Another side of the prohibition is also protection, right? We want to protect generally the woman, but also the man. And therefore, in general, we have the concept of not secluding oneself with someone from the opposite sex. And we see here, that also includes with non-Jews. So I just want to put that out there, that it's also for Jews as well. Okay, so now the Gemara explains that, let's go back first of all to the animals. You can buy, if you remember in the first parak, we spoke about buying an animal for a sacrifice from a non-Jew. So the Gemara asks, wait a minute, if we're concerned for bestiality, and that would be problematic to sacrifice an animal that had this done to it, how can we buy an animal for a sacrifice from an idolater? The Gemara says you can, because we don't suspect that they are going to use these animals for bestiality or for idolatry, because they're very careful to not sleep with their own animals. The Gemara says that if they sleep with their animals, it sterilizes them, and therefore they are not going to do that to their own animals, but they would not have any issue doing it to someone else's animals. Okay. You can buy a male animal from a female non-Jew, but you cannot leave a Jewish animal with this female idolatrous, because again, we are concerned that she's going to sleep with the other person's animals. And from here, there are other laws, like a widow should not raise dogs or host yeshiva students in her house alone. Again, we are concerned actually for them, and they will, right, maybe they'll be quiet and they're not going to say anything if she seduces them, and therefore that is not allowed. You cannot put female animals with a female idolater, because male idolaters will come and visit her and then sleep with those animals. The Gemara talks about the idolaters having a great desire to sleep with animals. Interestingly, the Gemara talks about the idea that these illicit relations, the desire for them came from the snake in the Garden of Eden, that the snake kind of did something to Eve and put this, maybe we'll call it some sort of poison in her, that all her children, descendants will have these desires for illicit relations. And the idea is that what one can say, but wait a minute, what about Jews? We come from Adam and Eve as well. So the Gemara says, at Har Sinai, at Mount Sinai, when we received the Torah, that purified us from these illicit relations, and therefore we do not have these desires. But the non-Jews who are not at Har Sinai, they still have these desires. the Gemara continues that they also not only sleep with domesticated animals, but also birds, and we should be concerned for these as well. Okay, Daf 23 talks about, again, I think like difficult concept of, or topic, I should say, that if a woman is taken by an idolater, right, like taken hostage, now the question is why she's taken. If she's taken because she owes him money, then we assume he is not going to rape her because he wants to make sure that that she's going to pay him the money, and therefore, when she comes out of this situation, she can be with her husband. But if she was taken because they wanted to kill her, then we actually suspect that not only would they try to kill her, but they would also violate her as well. And then if she is married to a Kohen, she is not allowed to be with her husband afterwards. This is a very difficult law because in general, we say that if it is something that is against her will, she can go back to her husband. It's obviously not her fault. However, there is a stringency when we come to Kohanim, to priests, that if there is if their wives are violated, they cannot be with their wives afterwards. It is interesting nowadays if this law still is still, I'm not sure practically how this applies nowadays, but definitely that is the ruling in the Gemara. Okay, since we're talking about animals and idolaters, so now the Gemara talks about the para aduma. The para aduma, right, is the red heifer. We spoke about in previous masechtot that the red heifer, the para aduma, needs to be purely red, and it cannot be worked. It cannot have done any work, and therefore there's a question if it can be bought from a non-Jew, because again, are we saying that they are suspected of bestiality, and therefore can we buy a para aduma from a non-Jew? Or maybe the issue is that we suspect that maybe it carried a load, maybe it didn't plow anything, but maybe he put his coat on the cow or something like that, and we say, no, actually, we do not suspect that this is the case because the non-Jews know how expensive these para adumas go for, right? How much money they could make, and therefore they would be very careful to not work it. However, with bestiality, we suspect that maybe their desires got the better of them, and maybe we should be concerned. Or no, another issue is maybe, and the Gemara brings up a verse that seems to imply that you can only buy a para aduma from a Jew. And another opinion is no, that's speaking about any animal for sacrifice, maybe not necessarily only for para aduma. Now, if you know that there was bestiality, obviously that animal is invalid for para aduma. But and then the Gemara asks, like, how was this animal born? Right? Maybe it was born C-section. So the Gemara actually has a machloket. If the baby was born C-section, is it still a valid para aduma? And maybe the Gemara says, oh, well, maybe we watch it, and then maybe the machloket is about the mother who gave birth to the C-section child, right? Maybe it's about her, and that was that. Okay, so the Gemara says, again, there's a verse that says, Vaikhu, you have to take the para aduma. This proves that it has to come from a Jew. It cannot come from a non-Jew. Then, if you recall, because we have learned this before, the Gemara says, but wait a minute, we have a story about a para aduma that was bought from a non-Jew, right? This is the very famous story of Dama ben Netina. We learn this in the topic of honoring your parents, right? The very special story about the rabbis who wanted to buy a precious stone for the breastplate, for the choshen, for the Kohen Gadol from this non-Jew, from Dama ben Netina, and he wanted to sell it, but the key to the chest or the safe was under his father's pillow, and he didn't want to wake up his father. And therefore, and they say, we'll pay you $1,000, we'll pay you $10,000. And he's like, no, I'm not waking up my father, right? And this shows that you can buy things from the temple for the temple from a non-Jew. The Gemara says, well, on Daf 24, maybe this is just a precious stone, and that's an exception because we're not talking about an animal. But if you remember the end of the story, right, so they don't get the precious stone from him, and he loses out a lot of money. So the Gemara says that the next year, as a reward for his honoring his father, a para aduma was born to them, and he knew, right, the rabbis came to him to get the para aduma, and they basically said, we'll pay you anything. And he said, no, just pay me, whatever you were going to pay me for that stone. So, right, again, he's an incredible role model, but this shows that you can buy a para aduma from a non-Jew. So the Gemara says, no, they actually bought it through a Jewish merchant, like a intermediary, and therefore it was okay. Or the Jews watched it from when it was born, and therefore it was okay. So the Gemara says, wait a minute, how did they know? Right, so maybe you also have to make sure that the mother wasn't violated in any way when she was pregnant or any time. But the Gemara is like, wait a minute, how would you know that this is the cow that's going to give birth to a para aduma? So they said, oh, well, what would they do? They would pass a red cup in front of the cow as it's mating, and then it would make a para aduma. The Gemara says, well, if you do that, if that would work, how come we don't have a million para adumas? And they say, well, it makes the para aduma, but you never know if it's going to grow those two white or black hairs, and that's why it is very expensive. Okay. The Gemara talks about, as we said, buying animals for sacrifices from non-Jews. And it brings up the case of Yitro, right? Yitro gave animals for sacrifices. So that seems to show that we accept animals from non-Jews. The Gemara says, well, maybe not, because maybe that was before Matan Torah, right? Before we received the Torah. Or maybe it was afterwards, and he actually bought those animals from a Jew, and that's why you could use them. Another case in the time of Shmuel, they took animals from Amalek. If you remember, they fought with Amalek, which is the nation that we're told to destroy. And instead of, they were supposed to kill everything and everyone and everything. And they actually saved the choice animals from Amalek. And the Gemara says, well, no, they actually sold those animals and then took the money and bought new animals from Jews for the sacrifices. Another case of David, when he actually counts the nation and he gets punished for counting the nation and people start dying. And then he was told to take animals from a Ravna, right, from this person who lived in Jerusalem, who is not Jewish, for sacrifices. The Gemara says, no, it's different because he wasn't a pagan. He was a ger toshav, right, a non-Jew who lives with the Jews and accepts certain things, and therefore he doesn't do bestiality, and therefore it was okay to take these animals from him. Another story of animals from non-Jews, if you remember, the Plishtim fought with the Jews and captured the Aron, the ark, and they keep moving it because everybody is suffering from having the ark with them. And when they decide, okay, that's it, we've had enough, and they want to send back the ark, they sent it back with 2 cows. Right? The Torah, the Tanakh says that they were nursing cows, and right, the miracle was that they left their babies in order to deliver the Aron back to the Jews. And the Jews took these cows and they made them into sacrifices. So the Gemara says, you see, you can take animals from non-Jews. The Gemara says no, right? This was what's called a hora'at sha'ah, where it was a in the moment, a necessity to do, that it was only in that case that you can use these animals, but in general, you cannot. Or maybe it was because they were sacrificed on a private altar, and therefore it was okay. Okay. All right. So now the Gemara talks about these animals, if they are objects of bestiality, it makes them sterile till they're 3 years old. After 3 years old, if that happens, then they are not sterilized. And this is and in these, the verses are talking about animals that are under 3 years old. Okay, as we said, right, the cows went straight to the Plishtim, from the Plishtim to Beit Shemesh. You can actually, if you ever go on a tour in Israel, you can actually see like the valley that they walked, and the Navi seems to say that the cows sing a song of praise the whole way. Right? They say Shira, or they were looking at the Aron the whole way, and they were singing a Shira. What were they singing? Maybe they were singing Az Yashir Moshe, right? The Shira, the song from the Torah, or maybe a certain part of Yeshayahu, or maybe a parak of Tehillim, or they made up a new song. And here at the bottom of Daf 24, it has the word Dvir, which is actually my grandson's name, and it says that Dvir means a book, and therefore, just so you should know that that's another word for Sefer is Dvir. Okay, Daf 25. Since we're talking about miraculous things that happen, right? Cows singing Shira is a very miraculous thing. Another thing that we know from the Navi that is miraculous is the battle with Yehoshua, with Joshua. He's in the middle of a battle, and it's Friday afternoon, and Yehoshua asks Hashem for the sun to stop so that they could continue the battle. Again, as I said, it was Erev Shabbat. And it says that this was written in Sefer Yesharim, the book of the upright. So the question is, what is the book of the Yesharim? Yes, Zohar mentioned Dvir is also a name for Kodesh HaKodashim, for the temple. Yes, exactly. Okay, Sefer Yesharim. One opinion is it's Sefer Breshit, right? Because our forefathers were Yashar, upright. And what does it say? That when the sun stopped still in the sky, all the nations knew about it, right? Because it's not getting later, it's not getting dark, or it was dark, so it's not getting light. Then there's a machloket, how long the sun stopped. First of all, the sun stopped twice, once in the middle of the day and once at the end of the day. And there's an opinion that it moved for 6 hours, it stopped for 6 hours, it moved for 6 hours, and it stopped for 6 hours. So 24 hours total, or maybe the day was 36 hours total, or it was 48 hours total, and they all argue on how many extra hours the sun was shining. The sun also stops for Moshe and for Nakdimon ben Gurion. So the story with Nakdimon ben Gurion, we actually learned it in Masachet Ta'anit, but it was a long time ago. It was a time of drought, and he borrows wells of water to feed the Olim, to feed the pilgrims that are coming to Jerusalem. And he said that he would repay the water, and if he doesn't give back water, he'll pay a lot of money. And of course, on the day that he was supposed to pay it back, it still didn't rain, and now he was going to owe this person a lot of money. And the Gemara goes like through like the whole day, right? Like at 9 o'clock in the morning, he comes and he says, "Okay, give me back my water or give me back money." And he's like, "No, I have so much time." And then at 12 o'clock he comes, meaning he goes like the Gemara builds it up with suspense. But in the end, he davens to Hashem and he says, please. Let this day last longer so that it could rain, and it will fill the cisterns, and it's exactly what happened, and it rained, and it filled the cisterns, and he didn't have to pay money. He just gave back the water. Okay. The same thing. It says that the same word is written in Yoshua as it is for Moshe. For Moshe with the war with Sichon. The sun also stood still for Moshe, just like it stood still for Yehoshua. Back to our Mishnah. The Gemara tells us that Jewish women cannot seclude with a idolatrous man. But as I mentioned in the beforehand, she also can't seclude with a Jewish man, meaning what's the Gemara trying to teach us? If she can't seclude with a Jewish man, obviously she can't be alone with a non-Jewish man. So the Gemara says that, it depends, right? Are we talking about people who are promiscuous or not? And the Gemara says that the difference is that for the non-Jew, even if his wife is with him, she still cannot be alone with him. Whereas for a Jew, if his wife is with him, the assumption is the wife is going to stop the husband from doing anything inappropriate. The assumption is for the non-Jew that is not necessarily the case. Now, let's say she is an important woman. Therefore, they would not be afraid that he's going to try and kill her, because again, if she's important, he's not going to want to kill her. Or in general, we're not afraid he's going to kill her, because really his desire is to sleep with her and not to kill her. However, with men, right? So again, the man shouldn't seclude with a non-Jewish man. We're afraid he's going to kill him. And then the Gemara talks about if, let's say, you're traveling on the road, a Jewish man with a non-Jewish man, so you should keep him on your right side so that if he starts any problems, you can fight him off with your right hand, because I guess most people are righties, not in my house, but most people in general are righties. If you have a sword, you should keep him on the left side, right, so that you can, take out your sword and then kill him from the other side. And if let's say you're going up or down, the Jew should always be on the, above. You should never give him, right, the power over you from below. Also, I thought this is fascinating, right? You shouldn't tell him exactly where you're going. This is something that children, at least in my neighborhood, learn when they are hitchhiking. Don't yell at me, but we do it from within our community to another community. But the idea is that you really, you tell the kids or even adults, right? If they say, where are you going? You say, oh, I'm just going to, you give a general location. You shouldn't give a specific location. And it's actually in the Gemara, right? So you should give something, right? Say that you're going further than you really are. And then when you get to where you want to go, you kind of like cut out early and surprise them. The Gemara says this actually we learn it from Yaakov and Esav, right? Yaakov tells Esav he's actually going further, and then he leaves early. As students of Rabbi Akiva met these Jewish armed robbers, right? Did you know that there were Jewish armed robbers? But, I guess armed robbers come in all shapes and sizes. And they told them that they were the students of Rabbi Akiva. And then the robbers said, wow, you're so fortunate that you're the students of Rabbi Akiva because even evil people can't touch you. But then there's another story on Daf 26 of robbers in Bavel, that when they met students of rabbis, they actually cursed him. So the Gemara says it shows you that robbers of Israel are, might be more dangerous, but they're better people because they gave a bracha to the people they were trying to rob, as opposed to in Bavel, they actually cursed them. So interesting, right? There are all types of robbers. Okay, the next Mishnah on Daf 26, the Mishnah tells us that a Jewish woman who is a midwife shouldn't help an idolatrous woman giving birth because you're actually bringing more idolaters into the world. A non-Jewish midwife can help a Jewish woman give birth. We're going to talk about that in a minute. A Jewish woman shouldn't nurse a non-Jewish baby. Again, you're helping the non-Jews. But a non-Jewish woman can nurse a Jewish baby if she's doing it in the Jewish home. So now the Gemara discusses what's with this midwife, right? So the non-Jewish midwife shouldn't help a Jewish woman because we're nervous that maybe she's going to kill the baby. Or maybe if there are other people in the room, it's okay because she wouldn't do anything. But if you're alone, then it's not okay, or it's never okay because, as we know, anything can go wrong, and therefore, maybe she'll put her hand into the woman and do something, and you wouldn't see it, and therefore, you should not have this midwife. Again, I'm talking about evil idolaters, who just want to kill Jewish babies. I'm not talking about your really nice midwife or nurse who works in your random hospital wherever you are. So just making sure that I'm being clear. Okay, nursing, again, we don't want to raise more evil children, but the non-Jewish woman can nurse a Jewish baby. Maybe they can't because, again, we're concerned she's going to kill the Jewish baby. Or again, if there are other people there, it's okay. Or no, because she could just put poison on her and you wouldn't even see it, and she might kill the baby without you even knowing it. The Gemara actually tells us that Jewish women who are midwives can get paid to deliver a non-Jewish baby because of, now the term in the Gemara is Ava. Ava is in Hebrew, means animosity, right? And that is something that we're going to talk a lot about in this Masechet. Again, on one side of the coin is we want to distance ourselves from these Jew-hating pagans. On the other hand, we do not want to cause more hatred, right? More anti-Semitism. So that is when the Gemara says animosity, ava, we have to be very careful and sensitive and read the situation, right? So if saying no is going to make people very upset, then we have to rethink what our response is going to be, right? And therefore the Gemara says that if you're getting paid, it's really hard to get out of that agreement, right? I'll give you $100. You're like, oh, what excuse can I come up with that will justify me not taking this job, right? So again, the Gemara says, if you can get out of it, great. Oh, I'm not available. I have something else happening tomorrow. I can't come. I have another emergency. If you can get out of it, great. If you cannot, so then you can be paid in order to do these things. From there, the Gemara goes into a discussion about saving the life of these pagans. Again, evil Jew-hating pagans. The Gemara discusses different levels, right? You're not allowed to cause their death directly, However, right, are you allowed to cause their death indirectly? Meaning, they fell into a pit and they're yelling, please, please come help me, save me, save me. Do you help them or not? So the Gemara says that you can save the idolater from a pit and get paid for it. Or, right, again, if you can get out of it, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm late for a meeting, I can't help you right now. If you can get out of it without them hating you even more, so then that is better. Right, you cannot actively put their lives in danger, right? So you can't push them in front of a moving train, but you do not necessarily need to save them. However, informers or heretics, these are people who literally put Jews' lives in danger actively. Those people, you can actively push them into a pit, right, or cause them to die. Again, you cannot stab them, shoot them, but you can push them into a pit and, oops, so sorry, and then they die, a few days later. Okay, I'm not saying that you should do any of these things. I'm just explaining the Gemara. And the Gemara talks about a mumar versus a min, which is a heretic and someone who doesn't keep mitzvot. So the question is, is it someone who doesn't keep commandments because they're angry at God, but maybe that's what a heretic is? Or maybe this is someone who is Jewish, but he worships idols, right? And that is something that is very terrible. Another thing is you can take away, right? You can prevent them from coming up, right? Take away the ladder, or put a cover on the pit or something like that. Okay. The Gemara now talks about converting an idolater, and you can do that if they accept Judaism, and you can give them a brit milah, a circumcision, but you're not allowed to give a brit milah for medical reasons to a non-Jew. A non-Jew cannot give Jews a brit milah. We're afraid that he's going to kill him. Or again, the same thing, if other people are around, maybe it's okay. Or no, it's not okay, because even if not everyone is around, he can say he slipped and actually sterilize the person. So therefore it is, we should not have a non-Jew do a brit milah. But then the Gemara has another braita that says that if you don't have a Jew to give a brit milah, you have an idolater and a kuti. If you remember, again, the kutim are a nation that live in Israel, and they convert, but really out of fear. So there's always a machloket in the Gemara. Are they seen as non-Jews? Are they seen as Jews? So here is one of those machlokot, right? So it says that you should have the non-Jew give you a brit milah and not the kuti, because the kuti would actually do a brit milah for idolatry, and therefore we do not want that, whereas the non-Jew would not do that. Or maybe the opposite. Better to use the kuti who converted as opposed to the non-Jew who did not convert. Or maybe, biblically, deoraita, a non-Jew cannot give a brit milah. And that's actually a machloka we're going to see now in the next daf in 27. An expert doctor who is an idolater can give a brit milah because he's an expert and very public figure. He's going to be very careful to not kill his patients or not sterilize them, and therefore you can use him as the moel, as the person who is going to circumcise. We said the kuti cannot do a brit milah because he does a brit milah on har grizim, meaning not for Judaism's sake. Now the Gemara says, wait a minute, right? When we learned about Korban Pesach, it says, lehashem himol, that for Korban Pesach, you need to give a brit milah for God. What does that mean for God? It means that a non-Jew cannot give a brit milah. You have to have proper intention when you give a brit milah. Or maybe it is okay. There's a verse to prove that only a Jew can give a brit milah. And more than that, only a person who has a brit milah can give a brit milah, which is why, in general, we say that women should not give brit milah. Don't worry, I'm going to get to tzipora in 1 minute. Right? The Gemara says, right here, the Gemara on 27, there's a machloket if a woman can give a brit milah. Again, we said that the verse implies that if you don't have a brit, you cannot give a brit. Right? So she does not have a bris, and therefore she cannot give it, or she's part of the brit, right? What we would call, right, the covenant. She's part of the covenant, and therefore she can give a brit milah, or, right, everyone agrees that a woman can do it, right? And our proof is Tzipora, right? Tzipora is the wife of Moshe, and the Torah seemingly clearly says that she gives a brit milah to her son. However, there's an opinion on this daf that says, no, she commanded someone else to give a brit milah, or maybe she started it, but Moshe finished it. So that can't necessarily be a proof. Okay, next Mishnah. You can go to a non-Jew for healing of mammon, right? Mammon means monetary things. We're going to explain what this means in a minute, but not for nefashot, things that are life-threatening, maybe. You cannot go to a non-Jewish barber, right? Again, don't forget, right? The barber used to use the razor. That's very dangerous. Or you can go if there are other people there, but you can't go alone. Okay, so now the Gemara explains, what does this mean? You can go for mammon. It means that maybe it means that you can pay him to, for his services, but you can't do it for free. Or maybe it means mammon, meaning where there's no life-threatening danger. But for nefashot, if it's dangerous, you cannot go to the non-Jewish doctor. Or it means you cannot go to the non-Jewish doctor if he causes any pain. But you can go to him for your mammon, meaning for your animals. You can take your animals to a non-Jewish veterinarian, but for yourself, you cannot. If a non-Jew tells him to take a certain medicine, you can listen to him because, he wants to keep his reputation, and therefore you can listen. You don't have to, be concerned that maybe he's, trying to trick you. If the Jew is going to die, if you do not go to this non-Jewish doctor, so then you can go. Right? There's a chance that he can save him is going to trump the chance that he might kill him. If you have a non-Jew, right, the idolater versus a Jew who now, practices idolatry, so then again, the mean is very connected to his idol, and therefore you cannot go to him even to save a life. But to the regular non-Jew, right, the regular idolater, you can go to him to save the person. The bottom of Daf 27 is a very famous Gemara. We have it in numerous places. The concept of v'chai bahem, right? The Torah tells us that we need to live for the with or for the commandments, meaning you do not have to die in order to keep commandments. However, if it's in public, then in certain cases, you do need to, take your life, succumb to death rather than to go against the mitzvot, right? This is the concept of chilul Hashem, of desecrating God's name. Last daf 28, any wound that is life-threatening, and you can desecrate the Shabbat for it, right? Mechalel Shabbat for it. So then you cannot go to a non-Jewish doctor for, because we're concerned. Or no, any internal wound you cannot go to the non-Jewish doctor for. Again, we're not talking about your nice, friendly non-Jew who works in the hospital in your neighborhood. We're talking about evil pagan who wants to kill all the Jews. So even though he's called doctor, he's still going to want to kill you. Since we mentioned an internal wound, the Gemara describes internal means from the lips inward. Or, right, what about the teeth? It's a machloket about the teeth, if they are internal or external, and if you can go to the non-Jewish doctor or not. There's I find it a challenging story where Rabbi Yochanan went to this non-Jewish woman to heal his tooth pain, and he went a few times and it was getting better, and then it was Erev Shabbat, and he's like, look, I can't come to you tomorrow. Can you just tell me what to do? And she's like, no, it's a secret recipe. And he's like, no. And he says, I swear, right? I swear to the God of Israel, I won't reveal the recipe. So she tells him the recipe, and then he basically the next day on Shabbat, he announces the recipe to all the Jews in Shul. I think it's a very troubling story. The Gemara says, no, it's not troubling, because if you look at the words, he swore that he wouldn't tell God, but he didn't swear that he wouldn't tell people, or that actually he does tell her afterwards that he's going to tell, his congregation. The end of the story has two options. One is that she's so upset, right, that he basically, destroyed her business, that she kills herself. Another option is that she's like, wow, you're so smart, I want to be Jewish, and she converts. So you can choose your own adventure, which one you like. Okay. But then the Gemara asks, wait a minute, how did Rabbi Yochanan go to this woman who's not Jewish for a toothache? So they say, well, because Rabbi Yochanan was so important, so he doesn't have to be afraid that she's going to kill him, because, she's going to want to save her reputation, so she will not kill him, or she's an expert, and therefore it was okay. Rabbi Abahu, the doctor tried to kill him, even though he was important. So the Gemara says, no, he's different because he used to argue with them all the time, and therefore they thought, like, oh, it's fine to kill him. The Gemara quotes a pasuk from the story of Shimshon, of Samson, which is Tamut Nafshi im Plishtim, right? The verse is when Shimshon basically sacrifices himself, right? He says, I'm happy to take myself down I'm happy to sacrifice myself if in that act I take down, right, all the bad guys. So the Gemara has this as, right, some of these idolaters are so evil that they don't care if they're going to ruin their own reputation, at least they get to kill another Jew. From here, the Gemara talks about a lot of different remedies for different ailments. If you are interested, it's on Daf 28. It leads into Daf 29. I'm not going to go through the details because, again, these are remedies from, even before the Middle Ages. So, if you have a boil, if you have a pain in your ear, you should eat kidneys. That helps with the ears, and you can fix your ear if it becomes dislocated on Shabbat. You can put a certain salve on your eye on Shabbat, but you can't grind it or carry it on Shabbat. Then there's like this list of all these ailments that are life-threatening. And then the Gemara gives you some great remedies, right? Radishes are good for a fever, and beets are good for the chills, and vinegar is good after bloodletting. I do not know. If you want to try some of these things, feel free to let me know how it goes. Okay, and with that, we finish for today. And I see we have a few more minutes, so if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And again, as we said, this shiur was dedicated for the refuah shlema, the speedy recovery of Noam Ephraim ben Ifat. Yes, any questions, comments?
Well, if I could raise my hand, I would be.
Yeah.
Okay. If you have answered this, I apologize, but I have always wondered the 3 years that you cannot eat the fruit. I know it only applies to ha'aretz, but is it from the day that it germinates? You can see that. Or is it just from the day you plant it?
It's a great question. Generally, we say it's from the day that you plant it. Let's say, I guess I would use the word permanently. So if, let's say you work in a nursery, right? The question is, do those years that it's growing, right?
Yeah,
Like as you
that's
said,
what
like
I'm wondering. Yeah.
Right. It's a great question. I don't remember. Zohar, do you know?
No, but it sounds right what you're saying, but permanently in the ground in Israel. So it's Matzah menutak is a different story, So.
Right. I think that if they are grown in, let's say, a pot, they're not considered a pot that doesn't have a hole at the bottom. They're not considered part of the ground. And then when you actually plant it in the ground, I think you count from there. But
I know that people
consult.
transplant it with the dirt that it was in the pot.
It's not about the dirt. It's about the
age. Isn't it about the age?
It's about the container. If it's even if it's the same dirt, if you take that dirt and then put it into the ground, I think. I'm not paskening, so I'm happy to look it up if you want.
I think you're reaching out also for the rooting. The root, the idea is
exactly.
it's rooted in that soil. So that comes into it where you have a little seedling and it has not yet been put into the ground. It has not yet taken root in the ground. And this also comes up with judging the age of a branch that has been grafted in that then bears fruit. And they want to know, well, that tree is, 10 years old. And so that branch might bear right away. And so do I have to wait for the branch to be 4 years or do it right away? And I, too, have forgotten the answer. The answer is out there. And I forgot what it was.
So I know in avocado trees,
looking.
Avocado trees, they say that you have to graft in order for them to bear fruit, from a fruit-bearing tree. But the question is that graft that you took was from a tree that already has passed the orla because it's already bearing fruit. So, question is, if we would be very happy if you could find the answer.
I would too. It would be yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I'm looking. Hold on. You can keep talking. Any other questions?
And by the way, most trees that are in pots have holes. I would say 90 and better percentage. Because if they don't, they'll root rot.
Yeah, for drainage, yeah.
Okay, here. The count of the 3 years does not necessarily begin when the tree is still a seed. Rather, the count begins once the tree is planted in the ground. The tree could be fully grown, but if it was replanted after being completely detached from the ground, the 3-year count begins anew. If enough soil was left, that was Zohar's point, if enough soil was left on the roots for it to survive for 3 years, or for even a few days outside of Israel, one does not need to observe the laws of Orla once the tree is replanted, I guess, outside of Israel.
And that's why they take the dirt with it when they replant it.
Right. If the tree was planted for its wood or as a barrier, the law of Orla does not apply.
Because it's not for the fruit.
Exactly. Meaning, you have to plant it for its fruit.
Okay.
Let's see.
The laws of Orla. So that's where I'm going to start because, believe it or not, it was rather convoluted. And every time you said something, I said, I thought to myself, yes, but. And so Okay, but thank you for trying. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yes. Any other comments, questions? Just to put, I'll tell you a little joke. Just to put the two things we discussed today. So I mentioned Orla and Brit Milah. So there's like a joke that sometimes they, on bottles of wine in Israel, right? It says we attest that this wine is kosher and it wasn't, there's no Shemitah wine and there's no Orla. But sometimes when they translate it, right, Orla is also the word for foreskin. So sometimes it says, right, with no foreskins.
My God.
It's very funny.
One more thing. Who was Noam Afrim bin? Yeah, Ephraim.
I don't know. I don't know. I was just told that
All right.
this is somebody who we're praying for, but I don't know any details.
Okay.
Okay.
On the note about your translation, it was very funny. I used to prepare payroll, and I needed to send the Israeli payroll, and I used to send the reports to the States for their approval, and they did a Google Translate, and they said to me, "You pay your employees in camels?" I said to her, "What?" So she goes, "Yeah, this word here, kupat gemel. Now in Hebrew, there are no vowels, so gemel is, contribution and reciprocation. Yeah, but it's not. It's gemel. It's reciprocated contribution, and the translation was gamal, which is camel. So it's the same.
So funny.
Consonants, but not the same.
That's so funny.
All
right.
AI has come a long way since then, but yes.
Yes. All right. Wishing everyone a Shavua Tov and a Shabbat Shalom. And Bezrat Hashem, we will see each other next week. Bye-bye.